Don't start drama over jewelry. That was my mother-in-law's voice, sharp but coated in a syrupy smile, as if stealing was just etiquette. And his sister? She laughed like it was a punchline, like my pain was entertainment. Hi everyone, my name is Marissa Hale, I'm 29. I always believed family reveals itself most in the little things. Gifts, words, glances across the table. But what happens when the gift you unwrap isn't new, but a piece of yourself someone else took? The room froze for me even though the party carried on. Laughter, clinking glasses, the dim glow of fairy lights across the dining hall. My hands trembled as I held up that bracelet. Delicate gold, a charm shaped like a crescent moon. The one I thought had slipped through a subway grate last year. Turns out it had been sitting in my sister-in-law's drawer. She smirked as if she was gifting me back my own story, edited for her amusement. I stared at her, waiting for an apology, but none came. Just more laughter. I could feel my face burn, my throat dry. I opened my mouth, but my mother-in-law cut in, her voice slicing through me. Don't start drama over jewelry. It wasn't the bracelet, it was the dismissal. The reminder that in this house my feelings were too small to matter. My husband sipped his drink, eyes darting away, complicit in silence. That night when the party ended and the lights dimmed, I packed a bag. Quietly. My fingers moved with a steadiness my heart lacked. Folding jeans, sliding my charger into the side pocket, the bracelet resting cold against my wrist. I didn't slam doors. I didn't write notes. I simply carved out space for myself by leaving. But morning has a way of dragging truth into the light. The next day my husband's voice ripped through our bedroom like thunder. What did you say to her? I jolted awake, his face red, breath sharp, as if I had committed some unspeakable crime. His hands trembled, not with worry but fury, misdirected, dangerous. He didn't care about the theft. He cared about the quiet rebellion of me daring to feel wronged. And in that moment, with his rage echoing against the walls, I realized. This wasn't about jewelry at all. It was about power. I lay still, eyes open, the bracelet burning cold on my skin, and thought, they want me quiet. But silence is the most dangerous sound I can give them. The story didn't begin with laughter. It began with that scream. His scream lingered in the air like smoke that refused to clear. My heart pounded against my ribs, but I forced myself to sit up slowly, deliberately, as if his fury didn't rattle me. What did I say to her? I repeated, my voice low. I said nothing. She confessed with her own mouth. But he wasn't listening. His fists pressed into the mattress, his jaw clenched so tightly I thought it might crack. You embarrassed her. You embarrassed my family. Those words, my family, stabbed deeper than his rage. Not our family. Not you and me together. Just his. As though I were an outsider squatting in their lives, trespassing at their table. I looked at him, really looked. The man I had chosen, the man I thought would be my protector, wasn't defending me at all. He was standing guard for them. My mind replayed the party like broken film. His sister's smug laugh, his mother's dismissal, his silence. And now his rage, turned not on them but on me. I wanted to scream back. I wanted to shake him, to make him see. But instead I let the silence stretch. Silence makes people uncomfortable. Silence forces them to hear the weight of their own voice. And in that silence I studied him as if he were a stranger. Finally I said softly, it's not about jewelry. It's about respect. He scoffed, running his hand through his hair. Respect? You don't disrespect my mother in her house and call it respect. His words sealed it. In that moment I knew I wasn't his partner. I was his scapegoat. I rose from the bed, pulling my bag upright with one swift motion. His eyes widened. Where are you going? To breathe, I whispered, though what I meant was to plan. I brushed past him, the bracelet sliding against my wrist like a reminder. This wasn't theft, it was exposure. They'd revealed themselves. And once truth is exposed, it can never be hidden again. As I stepped into the hallway, I caught my reflection in the mirror. Eyes swollen from tears I hadn't let fall, lips pressed thin but steady. I didn't look broken. I looked dangerous. Because betrayal doesn't always split you in half. Sometimes it forges you into steel. And deep inside I already knew, I would never hand that steel back to them quietly. I drove without a destination, the early morning streets still wet from last night's rain. Every red light reflected on the pavement like warning signs, but I didn't stop. My chest was tight but my mind was sharper than it had ever been. I replayed his words. You embarrassed my family. Not once had he said you're right or that was wrong. No, his loyalty bent in one direction only, toward the house where silence was demanded, where my worth could be mocked and reduced to drama. I parked near the waterfront and sat in the car, gripping the wheel. The bracelet glimmered in the faint sunrise, delicate but unyielding. I realized something then. It had been missing from me for almost a year, just like pieces of myself had been missing since I entered their world. His sister's laugh wasn't about jewelry, it was about possession. His mother's words weren't about peace, they were about control. And his scream? That was the sound of a cage locking shut. But I wasn't caged. Not anymore. I opened my phone, scrolling through messages I had ignored for months. Friends I had distanced myself from, opportunities one had let slip because his family needs us this weekend. I saw myself in every neglected text, every unopened door. That morning, with trembling hands, I started replying. Hey, I'd love to meet up soon. Are you still looking for a partner for that project? Small steps. But each message was a brick laid in a new foundation. One without them. I looked out at the water. The waves didn't apologize for crashing. The gulls didn't lower their cries to keep anyone comfortable. Nature was loud, unapologetic, alive. And I thought, why shouldn't I be the same? That house wanted me quiet, their good little audience. But they had forgotten one thing. Quiet women are not weak. Quiet women are planning. I slipped the bracelet off my wrist and held it in my palm. Not as jewelry. As evidence. And I whispered to the wind, this is only the beginning. When I returned home that evening, the house felt different. Not warmer, not safer, just smaller. The walls carried the echo of his morning scream, like a haunting I couldn't shake. He sat at the kitchen table, shoulders hunched, scrolling his phone. The moment he saw me, he didn't ask if I was okay. He asked, so, are you done being dramatic? I set my bag down quietly, every motion measured. Dramatic. I repeated, tilting my head. Is that what you call theft? Or disrespect? Or screaming at your wife like she's a child? He flinched. Not because my words hurt, but because I was calm. Calm is more dangerous than rage. Rage burns out quickly. Calm lingers. He muttered something about family loyalty again, but I no longer cared. My mind wasn't here at this table. My mind was already 3 steps ahead, weaving a plan in silence. After he stomped off to shower, I opened the drawer where we kept old files. Mortgage papers, car titles, receipts, and there it was. A folder marked with his family's name. I pulled it out carefully, heart thudding. Inside were scraps, copies of transactions, transfers, loans his parents had taken in his name, debts quietly disguised as obligations. It hit me like a tidal wave. This wasn't just about a bracelet. This was about a system. They didn't just take my jewelry. They had been taking from him, from us, all along, while demanding my silence as payment. I slid the folder into my bag. My hands shook, not from fear but from clarity. For the first time, I wasn't the one caught off guard. They were. That night, lying beside him in the dark, I kept my breathing steady while my mind whispered its vows. They want silence. I'll give them silence. But not the kind they expect. Because silence can be a prison, or it can be the sound right before thunder. I closed my eyes, the bracelet pressing cold into my palm under the blanket, and thought, tomorrow they'll learn the difference. The next morning, I didn't play the role they expected. No pleading, no tears, no explanations. I brewed my coffee, sat by the window, and watched the steam curl into the air. My husband eyed me warily, as if my calmness was more threatening than anger. He was right. I had the folder tucked safely in my bag, hidden between my planner and a book he'd never touch. Every time I felt its weight, I felt steadier. Evidence is heavier than emotion. It doesn't fade or get dismissed as drama. By afternoon, I made a call. Not to him. Not to her. But to a lawyer I'd quietly researched years ago when I first felt uneasy in their house. His voice was steady, professional. I explained what I'd found. The unauthorized transfers, the debts masked as favors. He didn't laugh, he didn't sigh. He simply said, bring everything in. We'll take it from there. That sentence was oxygen. Meanwhile, my husband's phone buzzed with messages from his sister, his mother. He paced the living room, tossing words like overreacting and respect. But I no longer flinched. Their drama was background noise. My silence wasn't compliance, it was strategy. That evening when he asked, "So, are we going to apologize and move on?" I looked him straight in the eye. "No," I said evenly. "We're going to see where all the money went." The color drained from his face. He knew exactly what I meant. He sputtered excuses, but I didn't engage. I simply walked past him, the bracelet glinting under the light, a quiet reminder that what is stolen can always return. Sometimes sharper, sometimes louder. I locked the bedroom door behind me, sat on the floor and whispered to myself, "This ends with me. Not with another laugh at my expense. Not with another scream. With me." Because they thought they had silenced me. But what they'd really done was hand me the microphone. The lawyer's office smelled of paper and polished wood, the kind of place where silence carried weight instead of dismissal. I laid the folder on his desk, each page a wound I hadn't seen until now. Transactions in the thousands, signed loans with no repayments, withdrawals marked with my husband's initials. He flipped through the pages slowly, his eyes narrowing. "This isn't just careless bookkeeping," he said. "This looks deliberate." Deliberate. The word cracked through me like lightning. I thought of my sister-in-law's laugh, my mother-in-law's command, my husband's scream. Deliberate, all of it. Small humiliations, small thefts, each one testing how much silence I would give. I signed the retainer agreement with steady hands. By the time I walked out, the bracelet around my wrist no longer felt cold. It felt like armor. At home, the tension was thick enough to choke on. My husband tried to play the role of mediator, saying things like, "If you just let it go, they'd calm down." But every time he spoke, I saw the ledger in my mind, the proof that calm was just their word for control. That night, during dinner, his phone lit up on the table. A message preview glowed across the screen. Did she find out? From his sister. He lunged to hide it, but too late. I met his eyes across the table, and for the first time he looked afraid of me. Not because I was loud, but because I knew. I leaned back in my chair, my voice level. "They've been stealing from you too. Do you understand that?" He opened his mouth, closed it again. His silence confirmed what I already suspected. Deep down he had always known. He just never wanted to face it. I stood, slid the bracelet off and placed it on the table between us. "This was just the beginning. But you need to decide, are you with them or with me?" The room was still. He didn't answer. He couldn't. And in that stillness I realized his choice didn't matter. My path was already set. The storm wasn't coming, it was already here. The family dinner was supposed to be a reconciliation. That's what my husband called it, his voice rehearsed, brittle. We walked into his parents' house together, but I didn't feel like his wife. I felt like a witness. The dining table glowed under a chandelier, silverware polished, wine glasses waiting. His sister smirked the moment I sat down. "Still wearing that bracelet?" she teased. I held up my wrist. "Bare." Her smile faltered. My mother-in-law leaned forward, her voice dripping with authority. "We don't need outsiders turning family matters into courtroom drama." Outsider. There was again their favorite weapon. But this time I was ready. I placed a thick envelope on the table. Papers slid free, copies of transactions, signatures, statements. The sound of paper against wood was louder than their laughter had ever been. "This isn't drama," I said quietly. "It's documentation." My husband stiffened beside me. His father's face drained of color. His mother's hand gripped her wine glass until it trembled. For the first time, silence belonged to me. "You stole from him," I continued, my voice calm but sharp. "You stole from us. And you laughed while you did it." The sister tried to snatch the papers, but I slid them back toward myself. "Careful," I said. "The lawyer has the originals." The air shifted, panic replacing smugness, guilt replacing power. Whispers turned into stammers, accusations flying between them. My husband sat frozen, caught between blood and truth, watching his fortress of loyalty crumble brick by brick. I stood steady and tall. "You told me not to start drama over jewelry. But this isn't jewelry. This is theft. This is betrayal." Their faces blurred in my periphery as I walked out, but I didn't need to see them. I could hear it, the unraveling, the frantic voices, the fear. For once, the silence in my chest felt like freedom, not suppression. And I thought, justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it walks away, leaving the guilty to choke on their own noise. The weeks that followed felt like breathing after years underwater. My lawyer moved swiftly, freezing accounts, filing claims, securing what was rightfully mine. Their empire of whispers and control began to collapse under the weight of hard evidence. Invitations that once flooded their home dried up. The same relatives who laughed at their table now avoided their calls. The same friends who praised their prestige whispered about fraud and betrayal. Their reputation, polished for decades, cracked like glass underfoot. My husband tried to repair what was left, alternating between apologies and excuses. But every time I looked at him, I saw the night he screamed at me for daring to confront his family. Love cannot survive where respect is buried. So one morning I slid the ring from my finger and placed it beside the bracelet on my dresser. Both symbols, once of love, once of theft, now artifacts of a life I'd outgrown. I moved into a small apartment overlooking the waterfront, the same place I had parked that morning when I first felt the shift inside me. The air smelled of salt, the gulls cried freely overhead, and I realized I had become like them, loud in my silence, untamed by anyone's approval. One evening I sat by the window as the sun dipped low, painting the water in gold. I traced the outline of the bracelet resting in my palm. It was no longer a reminder of loss. It was proof of survival. They had laughed at me. They had silenced me. They had underestimated me. And in the end they were left shouting at each other while I walked away with peace. Revenge wasn't the scream. Revenge was the quiet rebuilding of a life where their voices no longer reached me. I closed the window against the evening chill, lit a single candle and whispered to myself. I didn't win by being louder. I won by walking away whole.